Shit Talk Reviews. It's a Friday. It's the holiday season, the Christmas season, the Hanukkah season, the Festivus season.
Festivus. Yeah.
A Festivus for the rest of us. I hope you all have your Festivus poles erect.
Krampus.
Yeah.
Krampus season. Yeah, for sure. So I'm feeling good. Are you guys feeling good?
I am. I'm feeling great. I've been waiting for this patiently all week. I can't wait to get into this.
Well, we are on week 3 of our top albums of 2023. The first week was Dave's. The second week was Derek's. Here we are up to mine. Next week, we have the knockdown drag out to see who's right and who's wrong.
Will we? We'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, so Dave's list was packed full of good stiff stuff. Derek's list equally as strong. Yeah. I'm curious to see what you guys think of what wound up on my list, because as I mentioned last week, there's a lot of stuff from the 80s on here, namely Christopher Cross and Gary Wright. Excellent. Because you can't go wrong with Dreamweaver.
I'm just interested where Careless Whisper fell on this list.
I'll give you a hint. It's in the honorable mentions.
All right, man.
All right.
Let's
so
do this.
Let's get right into it.
Yes.
I too have a few honorable mentions. My first honorable mention perhaps shouldn't be on the list or even an honorable mention, because there were songs on the album that I didn't think were that great. And frankly, when we reviewed it, the numbers were not very high. But I'm a fanboy, and therefore the album made the list, and that is Periphery's P5 Gent is Not a Genre.
Okay.
You know, it's some monstrous tracks on there. Wildfire, Everything Is Fine, Zagreus, all great. Didn't love the album, but that's why it just squeaked into my honorable mentions.
I felt like that with Wolfie. I've had the same. I was looking so forward to it.
If you'd done honorable mentions, would Wolfie have been on the honorable mention list?
He would have been on mine for sure. Overkill would have been on it. Scorched,
Yeah. Okay. Another honorable mention: the band Car Bomb, live in Santa Cruz. This band is unbelievably good. Their album is a live album, so it's live footage of songs that didn't necessarily get released this year, but the album came out this year. So I'm going to slip it in there on a technicality.
I thought it was going to make your top 10.
Oh, well, it's that good an album. The fidelity is unbelievable and definitely worth listening to. It's out there. The stuff is really complex music, which is one of the reasons I love it so much. But definitely check out Car Bomb if you haven't before. My last honorable mention is horrendous Ontological Mysterium. I didn't know about this band until this year when they released the title track as a single back in June. And the rest of the album is incredible. It's super heavy. It's a really strong record. So yeah, that wraps up my honorables. Yeah. Number 10.
Here we go.
All right, number 10.
Here we go.
It is not the real Sepultura. My number 10 is Sleep Token. Take Me Back to Eden.
Wow, no shit.
Yeah.
You liked it. Good.
I really like the album. I mean, you guys know I love the genre skipping and bouncing back and forth, genre bending within the context of a song or an album. There are certainly exceptions to that rule. We know Avenged Sevenfold's latest album was loaded with genre skipping, and none of us were a big fan of that record. So, but Sleep Token, it's a great record. The vocals are killer. Instrumentalists on there are monstrous. The songcraft is killer. It's a great album.
Good pick, John.
Yeah, there are some songs that I don't love on it, but the album as a whole is a great presentation. And that's why it hit number 10 for me.
Very nice.
The media, all the metal hammers and Kerrang and all those are like, it's a big circle jerk over that record. It has been all year. So
yeah,
very cool.
Yep. So that's 10. Number 9, Ghost at the Gallows by Spirit Adrift.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I'm
is
surprised it fell that low. Surprised it was lower,
Derek and I talked about this earlier in the weekend, and we should have prefaced my list, and we should have prefaced both of your lists as well with the idea or the notion that our top 10s are largely albums that we reviewed or we did write-ups on. We know and certainly acknowledge that there were tons of albums that came out this year that were strong offerings that none of us touched on here in our lists. So these are albums that we have gotten our hands on or talked about or written about.
There was a dude. Go ahead, Derek, there was a dude that commented about us not having any black metal in our reviews. And I like black metal. I feel like there's too much coming out. Like it's the flavor, right now, and labels are gobbling up black metal bands. And I just find that it's saturated with that sound, the industry. So that's why I kind of shied away from it. But like a few years ago, Batushka was my album of the year with my friends. And I still listen to Hospodi by Batushka. And if you haven't heard it, you should definitely listen to it. It's great black metal. Yeah. And but it over the last few years, it's just so saturated. I can't listen to it anymore. And I'll change.
That commenter did though acknowledge that we don't listen to butt rock.
Yes.
So I appreciated that.
John,
is that like yacht rock?
I think so.
Derek said that this band was a band that you passed the baton to because they're that good. But the other bands, obviously, they're going to run their course. So I'm a little surprised that it came in at 9. I know you weren't feeling the way we did, but that's okay. So it's great about your list. Yeah.
And why my list is better than yours. Moving on. Coming in at number 8, Frostbitt, Machine Destroy is the album. It's, as far as my list goes, this band is probably the least known band on the list. And they should be more well known, at least for those who share my taste anyway. Great rhythmic patterns, killer production, and frankly, more lasers than you can shake a stick at. So I put a lot of weight behind lasers. Yeah. So yeah, Frostbitt, Machine Destroy at number 8. Number 7.
And we're getting to the nitty gritty here. Yeah.
We're getting to the nitty gritty pretty quickly. And now is when things are going to start to get really ugly. And I say that definitively because the number 7 spot on my list is occupied by Urne.
Wow.
Whatever.
What
a turd.
Yeah.
At 7. Okay, that's
7.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. A Feast on Sorrow by Urne coming in at 7.
Okay.
What a turd. Joe's gonna fly here and beat you up.
You know what? I'll take the punches.
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't have him on my list. Urne for you as number 1. I didn't, but I didn't think it would go. I didn't think it was going to fall at 7. So you threw a curveball at us for me. Anyway. Well,
again, there's a lot of good records out this year, and that's why.
Yeah.
Next time I see you, there's a headbutt coming your way. Hard headbutt.
Hey, listen, 7's not a bad thing. All the music, like John said, that we've covered. Top 7's pretty.
Yeah, all the stuff that came out. If it's top 10, it's top 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Urne, A Feast on Sorrow at number 7. I'm sorry, guys. I still love the record. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you on a stage somewhere.
Yeah.
Number 6, The Wretched, The Ruinous by Unearth.
Wow. Man, I was way off on this list. I'll be honest with you. I thought you had him at 1.
Really?
That was my pick. Unearth at 1.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
I had Unearth at 2 for him because every time I walk into his office, it's playing.
That's what I figured. I figured he'd have it at 1.
Yeah, it's on a lot.
It's a great record, but again, we talked about a lot of great music this year.
Yeah.
So The Wretched, The Ruinous at number 6, and another band that I can't wait to see live.
All right.
If Avenged Sevenfold shows up after this, your credibility goes out the window, just so you know.
We're leaning. It's so far they have the spots available.
I would say then that you guys should consider just dumping out of the call, and I'll finish it myself solo.
All right, top 5, John.
So number 6 was Unearth.
Yeah.
Moving on to number 5. Our good friends from Boston, Death Ray Vision.
Wow. Okay. Number
No Mercy
5.
from Electric Eyes. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Very good.
You know, we lauded praise all over this record, you know, all year long. It's a great album. Great songs on there.
Yeah.
The whole album just hits from beginning to end. And not that it matters in terms of whether or not it's a good recorded album, but those guys can replicate everything on stage really well. Yeah. They get up there and just slay it live.
Test to it too. I mean, you've seen it live. You know, they can. A phenomenal band. I mean,
yeah. So number 5, Death Ray Vision, No Mercy from Electric Eyes.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
What's it for?
What did you have them on my top 5?
I had your Death Ray Vision at 3.
At 3, okay.
Yeah, I had him at number 3.
Right. I did too.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Number 4 for the year, Ashen by Humanity's Last Breath.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The album is just, as we discussed, is just brutal.
Brutal.
It is a super heavy album, and it just everything crushes on that record. Very effective at delivering their message from the very beginning to the very end. There's no in between, and that's not to say that there's not a lot of dynamics on that album. There are lulls, and I went back and listened to our podcast about that, and I made a few comments about, you know, that there's no room to breathe anywhere on that album.
Yeah,
I think that may have been a bit inaccurate, but it's just such a strong album, and it is very, very heavy. But the presentation again is killer from the front of it to the back. So Humanity's Last Breath with Ashen at number 4. Now we're into the top 3, gentlemen.
I think okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
The top 3. I'm kind of curious. I kind of want to know what you think my other ones are.
I'm definitely, I'm thinking of Veil of Maya's got to be on here somewhere.
You think? Derek, do you concur?
Yes.
Well, you are correct, sir.
Yeah,
Coming in at number 3, Mother by Veil of Maya.
Okay. I knew you were going to have it on there somewhere.
Just some great songs. They're killers, and the band just continues to bring great stuff album after album. And it is a mathy, genty record. And that's the kind of shit that I love. That's what turns my wheels. So yeah, I really love this record. I think I rated it and it gave it a strong rating when we did the review of it, 9 out of 10. And thus here we are.
Very nice.
Sitting at number 3.
I have 2 bands left that I can't believe. Okay, let's see where they fall.
Well, when we get through this, I'm curious to find out who those bands are.
Yeah.
Coming in at my number 2 spot for this year is Labyrinth by Dissentient.
Okay, I would never got that. Yep.
Yeah, well, we didn't do a podcast on this one. I did a written review of it. And it's another album that's just jam-packed with killer rhythmic work and really ultra clean production. A great record. They employ all kinds of different techniques, and they blend really well together. And that's why it's so high on my list.
Yeah.
Whenever this album is brought up, he starts like moving faster. He's like an Oompa Loompa. You know, he starts moving around and getting excited and doing things and singing
kind of stuff I love. That's why.
Snarky songs. Yeah, it's not surprising.
For your number 1, there's a band that I know you loved, and you haven't said it yet. This could be amazing if it's.
What would happen if I said a band and it wasn't the band you're expecting?
I got 2 bands.
You just quit?
I have 2 bands left. I have 2 bands left that you would have had on your top 10, and one of these was in my 5th spot, which could be the one you might pick right now. Let's see. It's just could be big.
Well, the suspense is killing Dave, so we'll dispense with the waiting and get to it. And my number 1 album of the year is War of Being by Tesseract.
And guess what? There it is.
That's your number. You had, I
had it at 5.
Spot. Yeah.
No kidding. All right.
I love the record. I said it before. I think that this album may be Tesseract's Dark Side of the Moon.
You've said it.
I
Yeah.
think it's a super powerful record, and it's extremely well done on all levels. I am a big fan of the band, admittedly, but I think that the album is so good. It's one of those records that even if you're not a fan of the band, you could sit down and really get into it and enjoy it. In fact, you yourself, Dave, said that you enjoyed the album quite a bit, and that I know is not one of your chosen genres. So
it wasn't. Yeah, but
likewise with me, and I was ready. I have my notes and everything to do the review, and you know, I kind of knew that this was going to be high on your list. I didn't know if it would be number one or not because we didn't talk about it, but
yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, so
John,
War of Being takes the top one.
You were so I can't believe that Sermon wasn't even an honorable mention because you loved that. When that came out, you were like,
it's a good record. Yeah.
This was great. So I thought you would have them somewhere.
But as I said, and as we've been saying all along, there's so much good stuff that came out this year.
It's tough.
It was difficult to rank these and to leave albums out. I mean, frankly, Sermon should have been an honorable mention there too.
Yeah.
What's funny is I chatted with my buddy Matt this morning, and he used to do Hit the Pit and Mega Kung Fu with me, and he's like, man, it's been a shitty year for music. And I'm like, no, it hasn't. And I sent him the link to the last podcast, and he loved As in Hell. I said, you just have to look. You have to find it. There is a ton of good music coming out.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's just a matter of taking the time to find what you're into. And I think that this has been a great vehicle for us this year to find new music that we dig, and hopefully, you know, we've turned people on to some cool shit.
I hope so.
That's what it's all about.
It's interesting too, because we all came up in the radio era. You know, obviously you could buy albums and cassettes and all that shit when we were young, but largely, you know, unless you were home listening to what you wanted to listen to, you were relegated to radio play.
That's very true. Yeah.
You know, if it was getting played on the air, then you'd hear it. And if it wasn't, you talk to your friends because social media wasn't around. You know, we're old enough to be pre-social media. And now the offerings are so plentiful and abundant. Like you can find whatever thing you're into. But as you said to Matt, Derek, you know, you often have to seek it out. And it's not presented to you like it was 25 years ago, 30, 40 years ago.
Well, it's a fair point.
So there's a ton of good music out there, but you have to find it often.
I used to go and I would work, you know, like when I was young, you know, I was Curdy's age. I'd be like painting. I'd offer to paint fences and mow lawns and just to get money to go buy albums. To
go buy a record.
I would, and I would go, and back then the Dartmouth bookstore, Hanover, New Hampshire, near where I grew up, they had tapes, tons of tapes. This is before CDs. And I would go in there and I'd look at the covers. And if the cover looked cool and it had some kind of demon on it, I was all about it. You know, I think Rage for Order by Queensryche. I thought that was the coolest thing. So I bought that album and loved it ever since. So sometimes if the cover of the book looks good, it actually is. Who knew?
But that's everything with an album, right? The album, it was always about the artwork on an album.
Well, it was the first thing you saw, especially if you didn't know that band. Exactly. You didn't know anything by them. Yeah.
Like I said, it's when we were kids, we had record stores. You couldn't wait to walk to a record store and get your fingers going, flipping through records and looking at the art. The art was great because it really was the only visual you had of bands before MTV. You didn't know what they looked like, really. Right?
Yeah, and like Derek, he'd go in there and he would judge the book by the cover until he got home.
Yeah. It's a great list, John. Very good. I don't even think Tesseract was on my list. Well, I only did the top 10, but on
so who else?
Derek's honorable mention, I don't think he had Tesseract.
No,
like, you know,
no. So Sermon, you thought Sermon would have been on the list?
I had Tesseract, Villamaya, Sermon coming in at 5. One of them fell at 5. But you beat the top 4. You had me stomped. John, I swear, if I was a betting man, I think Derek would say the same. I had you for Unearth as number 1. I thought it was a slam dunk. And I thought you were going to have Urne at 2. Yeah. You know.
I'm not going to lie. I thought Periphery was going to be number 1.
Really?
Yeah, I knew he wouldn't do that because I think you loved it, but you
loved the band.
Didn't think it was. You just didn't feel it.
That album didn't didn't do it for me. Like
I felt like that with
Briars.
Wolfie. Same way.
There's some songs that just play. They're playing in your office, on that album. So I was like, oh, it's got to be it. He's, the songs he likes, and
yeah.
But, I don't like your list. Ern's not.
Well, yeah, Derek and I.
You're just fucking wrong.
Derek and I are better. Obviously, we've picked the best.
You and Derek are, without question, you and Derek are something.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. But next week's conversation is where we bring all three lists together and try and come to some sort of consensus. And as we've discussed, if we're going majority rules, clearly we are not in agreement. But we'll save that. We'll save that discussion for next week.
Unless you could get Tesseract here to play live for us.
If I can get Tesseract to join us for next week's conversation, would that sway either of you?
Yes.
Okay. I'll start working on that.
Yeah. Hey, man, that's your band. Fight for them, right? You loved it. Good for you.
I mean, how many albums would on your list, say Dave, or yours, Derek? How many albums would you look at and say this album from Urne or this album from Sermon or whomever? Is there, the album reaches the gravity level of Dark Side of the Moon.
Good point.
That's what I felt about War of Being the first time I heard it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's fair.
And that's why it landed where it landed. Yeah. So no disrespect to anybody who's not on the list or is lower on the list.
I got to tell you, that's how I felt with Urne. I just felt like it felt like it was just more, not just music. It was more him talking to me. This is powerful, but I understand where you're coming from. Felt the same.
And I will retroactively throw Patriarchs and Black's My Veneration in my honorable mentions too, because it's just a good, strong, heavy rock album.
Yeah.
Bordering on metal, Dan. From front to back. It is a good record.
Yeah, it's like Death Ray from beginning to end. It's a great album.
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from that album. The reason that these other ones, made it in the top 10 is because stylistically, it's a lot more of the stuff that I really am into. And that's why, for me, they are my top 10.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, anybody else agrees. I mean, I shudder to think what the comments on YouTube might be as a result.
Ashen was a good one. I didn't see that coming. It was a good one.
It's powerful record. One might even say tremendous. Well, that's great. So that's the list. We have now all presented our lists to
good job, guys. Both of you.
To my sister and my mother and my
Six.
sister.
Don't forget six. Flakes.
And my boy, Two Flakes.
Two Flakes. Your mom? Say your mom?
I think I did. I don't know. Okay. She doesn't listen. She looks in to see if she feels I look appropriate or not.
Yeah. So, good list, guys. Very good. This is great.
Good stuff. So I will inevitably have to edit this down for length. So at this point, the edit will have just happened. And so we're going to go and wish everyone a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, because this one will probably be our last podcast until post Christmas, when the great knockdown takes place.
It was a good year. A lot of great music. Thank you.
It was.
You guys introduced me to some really good bands and really.
Yeah, I wish we could say the same to you.
I gave you Sermon, John. Come on.
You did.
Derek gave us Death Ray Vision. Come on, there's been some good ones.
True.
I gave you Urne.
You gave me Cavalier Experience.
I gave you Urne.
You gave us Urne. You did. Good for
you.
He gave you Urne. I left him at number 7. So.
Urne, and Spirit Adrift. I mean, come on, give me some
credit. You had some good stuff.
Just meetings are going to start.
That's right. All right, guys. Have a great weekend.